Hey everybody, I'm doing this old school. Usually I have my new setup, which is not the perfect setup, we're working on it, but I have been able to use the new computer and the new lighting. Not today though. Tika is on the coronavirus couch where I usually do videos. I am not going to bother her. So here I am in another part of Casa Tika doing a video on my phone. So yes, it's going to be a little bit shaky and I apologize in advance for that fact. But I had said we were going to do a guidelines video every darn day, and this is day 3. We've had the introduction, we've had the very first bullet point. The second bullet point is about reacts. When I am done, hopefully there's someone on leadership team or staff that can drop the Lace on Race guidelines right down here. If they don't do it, I'll do it after I'm done with the video. But the second one is about reacts. It should be a very quick video because it's a very clear guideline. No reacts. We do not do reacts on Lace on Race. There are a number of posts in the pinned post that tell you exactly why we are not fans of reacts. And they're there for your perusal. If you have any questions about them, feel free, but I am not going to give a blow-by-blow description of the reacts. I want to talk. Sorry, I'm not comfortable. I want to talk in a real way about the reacts themselves and why we made the choice to say, reacts really aren't a great thing. By the time Lace on Race started in early 2018, we had quite a bit of over 2 years of people in racial justice and social justice spaces who were learning things and learning who not to be and what not to do, and not so much who to be and what to do. That's where we come in. But at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to do something different, to curate and create and foster a community where we went deeper and farther. And for a long time, we just discouraged reacts because this is how it was in early 2018. There would be times when we would get literally 400 reacts on a given post and 2 responses. So we started encouraging reacts, and the first, or discouraging reacts and encouraging engagement and comments and responses to comments. And one of the things that we had said was, if you're going to do a react, you have to do a comment. That did not work as well as I might have liked because, people just ignored it. So we started saying, okay, we're just going to prohibit reacts altogether. And we did not have initial success with that. People do what they learn to do. And what people in racial justice and social justice spaces had learned was that they were to be quiet and that they showed their appreciation by liking and hearting and doing emojis. And also, despite our encouragement of deep engagement, people at first honestly didn't know what deep engagement was. They were afraid to make mistakes. They didn't know me. And they didn't trust me. And so when I said this is a safe place to make mistakes and learn how to course correct, they didn't quite trust that. They didn't know whether or not I was going to bring the hammer down on them. They didn't know if they were going to be humiliated. They didn't know any of this stuff. And so what wound up happening is that people simply didn't do it at all. And the community suffered for it. When we decided on no reacts at all, it was a big milestone in participation, a big milestone in the depth that we were able to go, and frankly, the quickness as to how far and how fast we could go. It was not and is not a perfect system. You will notice that there are reacts on almost every single post, despite my saying no reacts. There's reasons for that. One is something that I have said, not just in posts about reacts and emojis, but in posts that talk about the idea of being able to be taught and in a very real way mentored and, dare I say, supervised, to be led by a Black woman. There aren't a lot of us in leadership positions. We can talk about that, and we will, and we have before. But the fact of the matter is that people are used to doing one of two things when it comes to how they engage with and relate to Black women. And I, here at Les Sans Race, serve as a proxy for Black women. They're used to fawning and saying all the right things. Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful. This is such a unique space. I can't believe I'm here. Or, you're not the boss of me. And so my saying no reacts actually elicits a counter response. You say no reacts, I'll show you no reacts. I'll react when I want to react. And let's talk about how that lands. Let's talk about how that lands on the person who is doing the asking. That would be me. But also how it lands in terms of your own mind. You are here to learn how to, the obligatory phrase, everybody all together, how to lessen and mitigate the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people. And one of the first things that white people need to do is to affirm our humanity. And that is not something that comes naturally. That is not something you are used to doing. Any of you. I don't care if you're 18 years old. I don't care if you're 88 years old. This is a society that actively discourages taking us seriously and heeding our words. This is a great assessment tool. People who have been here for a year or two and are still using reacts and emojis, I can almost bet you that they're not active on the boards. People who scroll and roll and a lot of times people will say, well, it pops up in my feed and I didn't know until I pressed the react button that it was Les Sans Race. We're not just talking about mindfulness and intention here in this space. This is a rehearsal space and a lab, which means it's not just that you put on your mindfulness cloak here, but that you take it out there, that you take it out into other online spaces, and you also take it out into your so-called real life, your offline spaces as well. So if you're scrolling and rolling on Facebook and you're just liking and hearting everything you see, you're not just doing it at Les Sans Race. You're doing it in other places, and there is an open question of how much you're actually retaining. The information that we give you here, particularly when it comes to relational ethics, when it comes to how you do community with each other, is cumulative. You learn by doing. Reacts are not going to get you there. They won't. The reasons that we have started really hitting on these guidelines is because we want full and good participation going forward. We want to not have to say this all the time. And let me tell you, my policing behavior comes at the emotional and intellectual bandwidth that there's only so much up here. If I have to play school marm all the time, that cuts into our time together. And whether or not I want it to, it affects how I commune with you individually and how I commune with the community at large. So that is one reason, two reasons why we do not do reacts. The third one is, and I think I touched on it, is about retention, is about being able to really sit and confront what you're looking at. If all you're doing is scrolling and rolling, like I said, your retention is going to be awful. If you are commenting, even if, and I'm just going to nip this in the bud, even if you think you're saying just basically a variant of what other people have said, it cements it in your mind. Your being able to say something out loud is the same as when I am looking at a recipe that I haven't done before. Or even if I have done it before. Before I start gathering my tools and my ingredients, I actually read the recipe through, like a chapter in a book. And I say it out loud. I need 4 eggs, 1 cup of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar. I need to cut that in. I need to set it aside for 20 minutes. And so on and so on. If I don't do that, it's not inculcated in my brain. And even if I have the recipe right here, I might skip some things. If they say nutmeg and I say, all I have is allspice, I can't be too upset if the recipe doesn't turn out as intended. If they tell me to preheat my oven to 350 and I turn it on to 350 2 seconds before I'm actually ready to bake and I do not get the result I want, there's no one to blame but myself. At Lace on Race, it is important that we remember that as much as other spaces, online spaces, Facebook, websites are often proscriptive, they tell you what not to do, it is almost an anti-recipe. When I look at the recipe book, when I'm looking at Mark Bittman's How to Cook Everything, and this is not an endorsement, I'm not getting paid, but that is a damn good cookbook. Mark Bittman does not tell me, do not use 3 eggs. Do not use fully 2 cups of flour. Do not use Chinese 5-spice. He tells me what to do. He doesn't tell me, don't do it at 400 degrees. There is a certain amount of uncertainty that can come in when people are telling you what not to do, but they don't tell you what to do. So I would like to flip the script on no reacts. We say no reacts, and you're going to see that in the guidelines, and I'm really serious about it. But let's flip it to proscriptive. What do you do instead of no reacts? Nature abhors a vacuum. So if I'm telling you not to do something, it is only fair that I suggest strongly of what you should do. So instead of liking and hearting, let's give a proscription. Let's sit with the material mindfully. Even if it's only a 2-sentence meme that you're used to scrolling and rolling by. If we are giving you this content, we're curating it for a reason. And one of the things that's always good to ask is, why is Lace giving me this? Which means no scroll and roll, which means really pondering why I asked the question or presented the meme or gave you the article or wrote the article myself. And then, what should I get out of it? What are my reflections from it? Am I activated? Am I upset? Am I nodding vigorously? Yeah, this is awesome. And everything in your being wants to heart. Well, the prescription is heart with words. Why did it activate you strongly, either pro or con? If it didn't activate you at all, why did it leave you cold? Either way, how can you be neutral? There should be something in there. And if not in the meme itself, in the responses that you're reading, because you're not just reading the meme, right? You're reading the comments, because the comments are where the action is. One other reason that comments are important is that it increases reach. We're going to talk about this later in another bullet point, but let's tell the truth. Facebook suppresses us a lot. And a lot of people think that they're doing me a favor by liking and hearting. Let me tell you what gets more coverage, what gets more penetration into our Facebook audience. Comments do. When I see 134 comments, I also usually look over and see about 1,000 to 1,500, sometimes 2,000 views. That means that Facebook penetrated harder than it would be if you just liked and hearted. You guys need to trust me a little bit, and that I know a little bit about this 2.5 years later. That I know what brings audience, that I know what brings retention, that I know what fosters community. So a lot of this is you're not just doing this for your own aggrandizement, for your own retention and understanding of material, not even for your fostering community, because the more comments we get, the more community there is, the more cohesion there is. But, quite frankly, because I said so, we're going to circle back to what I had said earlier. Most of you are not used to being under the leadership of a Black woman. So even if I did not have if I did not have all of these wonderful reasons, and they're really wonderful, I'm quite proud of my reasoning, I asked you not to. And if we are going to learn how to lessen and mitigate the harm endured by brown and black people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy, then we need to learn how to, frankly, follow instructions. And not just for white people too. Some of the worst offenders are two cohorts, people of color and people who know me personally. People who know me personally think that they can shorthand because we're friends. We're friends in real life. We've been friends on Facebook for years. So it's lace. It's just lace. So they just like. And they set a really awful example for people who are learning how to do this work well. As well, people of color, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be saying this throughout the guidelines, need to learn how to put skin in the game here too. I understand the dynamic here. I understand that it might be hard to comment and be fully present in this space, but I am eye to eye asking you to start doing exactly that same thing. It is discouraging when I see those two cohorts of people who one would think would be wanting to amplify and bolster me actually do things that wind up sabotaging and undermining. And all three cohorts, white people, people who know me, people of color, I'm going to ask you not to do this. It's tough work. I love it. I love it. I love being with you every day. I love engaging with you. I love writing. I love mentoring staff and leadership team. But it is discouraging to have to say the same thing over and over, and I'm going to ask that I not do that. So those are the reasons I'm going to be writing up a follow-up introduction to the guideline. Bullet point 2, day 3. I also owe you bullet point day 1, and you will get it. I was shopping for paint today. I'm unrepentant, but it will get done. I'm also going to start saying this with every bullet point before I leave. Oh, shiminy, I just knocked over something. I'm going to have to fix that. But we are going to be introducing the Lace on Race Cafe, and a big component of that is going to be Chef's Table, where we learn to go farther and deeper and faster. For those of you who are planning on becoming part of Chef's Table, it is going to be a requirement that you listen to the video, read my words underneath the video in terms of the guidelines, affirm that you agree with and will adhere to them for all 19 bullet points. And yes, we are going to look. Part of being on Chef's Table is being mentored and mentoring. And one of the things we need to do is to have a shared language, have a shared ethos, have a shared North Star. And the best way to do this is by everyone being willing to look at these guidelines. Whether or not you've been here for 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 years, or you were here the very first day when I pressed the submit button in January of 2018, everyone could use a bolstering up of their praxis. It is not only new people that do reacts. There are some of you who have been here from day one who still do, and I'm going to ask you not to, because I care about you. I care about this space. I want you to learn as much as possible, and I want you to take that knowledge and be able to generalize it and extrapolate it and take it outside. You will not do this while you are doing what you have learned to do in other spaces. We are new people doing new things in new ways, and the very first new thing you learn to do here is no reacts. I love you all. I look forward to continuing this series because we've got 17 more bullet points to go. Thank you for being patient with me as I used my phone here in this room, and I will be with my setup tomorrow. I love you all. Comments down below, absolutely. It is a requirement, and I don't know if it's posted yet, but I will post it there. Comments are absolutely required. I better not see any reacts. I had better not see any reacts on this particular post. And comments are absolutely required. I affirm, I concur, I've confronted, I want agreement. And yes, I will be looking at them. We are going to want a dedicated cohort of at least 150 to 200 people for the Lace on Race Cafe. And we want people who are ready to hit the ground running, that we are not going to have to give foundational stuff to or reinvent the wheel with. If you are serious about doing this work here in Lace on Race, your participation in this guidelines revisiting is mandatory, and your agreement to adhere to them for the sake of not only yourself and not only the community, but in service to our North Star is absolutely crucial. Thanks so much. Talk to you tomorrow.